Hey traders, Cousin Vinny coming to you on Sunday, April the 6th with a quick market read and a watch list going into this second week of April. These are some of the things that we're going to cover today. Most notably, we saw weakness on the NASDAQ and the Russell on Friday. The S&P is moving sideways. We did see a little weakness there. Seasonality wise, we are in a bullish month of the year, typically the most bullish out of the year, and we are in a midterm and the presidential cycle. So I'm expecting that we could see a bounce from this point. I'll cover that in a minute, and see somewhat higher prices before we do see seasonality kick in and lower prices going into the summer. This is a chart of the NASDAQ Composite, and most notably to me, I do see a broadening descending pattern here, which we could experience a bounce at the 618 retracement and a move back up to this upper trend line and the possibility of a move higher. Now the reason why we see weakness, at least for my foxhole on the NASDAQ, is there are a lot of large cap biotech stocks that have been hit recently. Aside from that, we do see a number of distribution days, these two being most notable, but a lot of the indicators like the bullish percent, the NASDAQ is moving lower, could see a move to the upside out of that broadening pattern. MACD is near an area where we could see a change of trend, and the number of stocks on the NASDAQ Composite trading above their 50-period moving average is an area where we could see a resumption of a move higher or a bounce. And percent B prices are at the lower Bollinger Band, as we see here, and could trigger a buy signal short term. The industrials put in an area of support and resistance here, and also lower highs where we broke above that level on Monday, stayed above that level, hit the upper Bollinger Band, came back down, and now we're testing those lower highs, that trend line. I'll be watching that level as well as the 382 retracement and RSI. We are, however, in an ascending channel, which is a bearish pattern, so there's that caveat as well. Remember, this is only 30 large cap stocks, so keep that in mind when using this as an indicator of market breadth or strength. This is a chart of the New York Stock Exchange Composite Index, an index comprised of 1,867 stocks. We are obviously in an uptrend, and we have an area of support down here. The recent pivots in the sideways range were right at the 382 and could possibly test the 50% level. So there's really not a lot here to look at. RSI is an area where we could bounce or see further weakness. We do have distribution days, but note the high-low indicator is still moving sideways after a bullish cross last week. Russell saw a lot of weakness as well on Friday, a really ugly candle. We are in a broadening descending pattern here, and we have a lower trend line that we could bounce off of, as well as a 618 retracement from these pivots here at 1082.72 and this high at 1212.82. These are off slightly, but that you get the general idea. And we are right at the 50% retracement currently. Being there are biotechs in this index as well, I could see a small move down on Monday, test that, hammer, and move back up into this pattern and try to resume a little bit higher for these next couple of weeks into April, as I previously pointed out with regard to seasonality. This is a chart of the SP 500. The things to note here are the Kirby level sitting down below price. We have the 1860 level where the top of this Kirby is, as well as some other areas that people are watching. 188 on the spiders. We're also coming down to that area, a previous area of support and resistance. We have the 382 just below us, and we have some distribution days. Indicator wise, the S&P bullish percent is moving sideways. NYSE is not giving us much of a signal here. NYMO is down below zero. MACD is crossing down. So the S&P 500, I could see this moving sideways, continuing and maybe bouncing on Monday. One thing to keep an eye on, this is a chart of the S&P 500 Weekly. Keep an eye on the CCI. We spend a lot of time up above the 100 level. So we currently see on the weekly a shooting star, but we are positive for the most part, even though we're moving sideways. So I usually keep an eye on this on a weekly chart basis, because a move down below the 100 level would be a sell signal. But currently we do not see that, with prices continuing to rise above the rising 10-period EMA, the blue line here. One of the reasons why I'm leaning more towards the bullish camp is the DBV, or the Currency Harvest Fund, which is a reflection of the carry trade. Note we have this bullish tight flag here at levels that we saw as resistance previously, but again, this is a bullish pattern moving off of the EMAs, the 50-period moving average here, smooth moving average, where we bounced off and we moved higher bullish, and we have RSI continuing to move higher as well. So a move higher on DBV is bullish for the markets, equities, and a move lower would be bearish. So if this broke down back into this level, we could see weakness short term. But I think what's going to happen is we're going to break out of this level here, and being that many people aren't watching this particular indicator, they're going to miss this signal altogether. Now that's just my opinion. It's your wallet, so just keep that in mind. This is no guarantee. This is just something I'm watching going into the week. The 10-year yield hit an area of resistance previously pointed out a number of weeks ago. We bounced off that level and moving lower. Generally speaking, bonds are moving sideways short term, and we should see a decision in the near future on which direction they're going to decide to go. But for the most part, as I mentioned with the currency trades, carry trade, the move looks to be higher on equities in the short term, and possibly a move higher on bonds like TLT and IEF during the summer. That's how I'm positioning myself currently. This is a chart of the Barclays Aggregate Bond Fund. You can see prices continue to move sideways here, with Bollinger Bands not giving any direction for the most part. Very large cup and handle with a smaller cup and handle inside. This is getting really messy in here, but note where prices are, and RSI is moving higher. MACD is moving lower, and we see slow stow in the oversold area and bouncing. I'm expecting bonds to continue to move sideways into the summer, where we might see higher prices with equities moving lower. IEF, the 7-10-year bond, moving sideways, as we pointed out, right along this Kirby level. Let's take a look at TLT. So with TLT, we're seeing the same thing. We're seeing higher lows and higher highs for the most part, but we are noticeably moving sideways. The Kirby level here tapers off, as we can see, and we see this larger pattern here that we're building the right side of a cup. So I'm expecting this to move sideways into summer, equities to move lower, and then bond prices to continue to move higher into September, October. Looking at the volume and the CCI, we can see a bounce here at 0, and MACD continuing to move sideways and not giving us any signal there. Looking at sectors, you can go here on stockcharts.com. Okay, click on the free charts, and then down here under S&P sector ETFs, you pull up a performance chart, and what we're going to do is going to click on this button here, and then double click time period and put in 5 days. that shows us which sectors have been bullish over the last week and which sectors have been bearish. That's important in covering our Bollinger Band scan and why we trade certain sectors versus others when we look at setups for the week. Okay, so this is a sector candle glance view with the 6-month and MACD enabled. Note most are above their 20 period moving averages, and a few have dipped down slightly, like the bank sectors. Do note that XLE, XLB, and XLI all are above their 20 and look better, so we'll be looking at those sectors for trades going into the week. XLY had a little bit of a dip last week, but we're for the most part moving sideways. I'll be watching this particular sector going into the week because it was strong for the last few days until it started selling on Thursday and Friday. Okay, so let's look at some charts going into setups for Monday. Note the Bollinger Band TTM squeeze scan is smaller. We did change this to scooter scores above 50 versus above 90 because, as you can see, there's very few above 90. There's only one. Any above 80, we only see 4 here. So the scooter scores are getting smaller or weaker. So keep that in mind when you take these trades because they could fail more easily. OKE is moving sideways at a Kirby band, and MACD is giving us a bullish cross. Does that mean it's going to break out? Well, we're seeing small or low volume here, so we could continue to move sideways in this rectangle pattern and a sideways range for any indeterminate amount of time. So not really a trade I'd be taking. Lilly, big cap pharma, not much to see here. Let's take a look at MACD. MACD's flat, so not much of a trade here. With the spring and summer months coming up, we can see Molson Coors, TAP. Bollinger Bands are expanding, and we have a MACD cross up high, but this could fail. We do see a lot of volume though, so this could be a short-term trade. If you're interested, we could grind up above. We could grind along these upper Bollinger Bands and continue to move higher. Note where your moving averages are headed. And we have no Kirby resistance volume here. Do note that the volume or the change in price was only 7 cents after having a pop higher up to 61. So keep that in mind going into the week. WLL, Whiting Petroleum, above a Kirby level. Nice cup and handle pattern. Bollinger Bands are moving higher. We did test highs and move back down into the Keltner channel. MACD is trying to cross, but we did see nice volume. So this is something to keep an eye on, with energy faring a little bit better last week. Vanguard REIT BNQ. We pointed this out, showed up on the scan a few weeks ago. Note that at TNX, the 10-year yield continues to move lower. This could pop above this level. So I'd be watching REITs again going into this week, these next couple of weeks into April, end of April. Note the MACD cross and the volume and the fact that we're above this Kirby level. The IYR real estate shares moved pretty much sideways for the entire week last week. We do see a double bottom and a cup pattern here with a handle. Bollinger Bands are tight, and we're trying to get above that Kirby level, with MACD appearing to give us a cross last week but then flattening out. So do note the volume here on real estate shares in general. Keep an eye on VNO, GGP, Tanger Outlets, General Growth, CB Richard Ellis, and a few other names in that space. XCL was on the scan last week. Xcel Energy did try to make newer highs and did close slightly higher at the upper Bollinger Bands, with MACD giving us a cross, and we do see nice volume. So I look for a continuation going into the week. I'd only be looking at these short term because we could see some rotation in the short term as well, as energy's been strong over the last few weeks. Nordstrom shows up on the scan today. This weekend, JWN. Did note that a number of Retailers looked pretty interesting last week and showed some strength. Let's look at KSS, Kohl's, which showed something similar with a MACD cross. Not sure why that's the case, but MACD continues to move higher. Let's take a look at Target. These aren't on the scan, but keeping an eye on these. The 200 period descending here. There's bad news here with Target, hackers and stuff, where prices move lower. This is a strong company, so you could send some value entries here on mutual funds, but for the most part, retail showed some interesting strength last week. This is a chart of XRT, and this is why it's pointing this out. Those few companies that were doing well with the XRT seeing a pretty nasty candle on Friday. I was curious as to why we saw strength in Kohl's and Nordstrom. SPG, Simon Property Group, in that area, Vanguard REITs that I pointed out previously a few minutes ago. Do note, nice pattern here at the upper Bollinger Band. We see nice volume, and MACD is moving sideways with a little bit of a cross on Friday. Keep an eye on the sector. VNO is also part and parcel, continuing to move higher. This isn't on the Bollinger Band scans, it's just something that popped into my head. GGP is General Growth Properties. Same here, MACD is starting to turn up, but we do have this Kirby level to deal with. SKT is Tanger Outlets. Nice little pattern here. A few red days on Thursday and Friday, but for the most part this is in an uptrend. The EMAs are moving higher, and we have this Kirby level to deal with. If we got above this level, this could move higher. But again, just remember seasonality. The end of April is typically where we start to see weakness in the market. Sell and man go away being the operative word or phrase. Healthcare Trust, another REIT in that space. Note the Kirby band here, level that we could get above. Cheap stock at $11, not too bad. MACD is drifting lower. I would look for this to turn higher. Note that stochastics is already starting to give us a signal, so this could bounce and MACD could turn. Nice volume on Thursday, Friday with the market being lower, so we see relative strength. If the market bounces, we could see this one take off to the upside. And any other stock that was showing relative strength on Thursday or Friday. Liberty Property Trust shows up on the scan. I don't remember seeing this one before. LPT. Reasonably priced stock above the Kirby level. Bollinger Bands are tight, and prices are at the upper Bollinger Band with MACD giving us a cross. Again, this is another name in this space. These REITs doing better with TNX giving a possibility of a move lower. Brandywine Realty, BDN, huge volume on Thursday, not sure why. MACD's flattening out, could give us a signal that stochastics is a little bit overbought short term. DDR, Developers Diversified, a name we've traded in the past and has been on the scan recently. Note these spread triple bottom here. These highs that we're testing, we grinded along this area. We have a nice rectangle pattern that we're breaking above, so that's a signal to move or to go bullish on the bias on this trade. MACD's crossing higher. I'd like to see more volume come into this one with TNX, again, 10-year yield moving lower. And this nice Kirby level tapering off here above these 1740 levels. And Kimco Realty, KIM, another name in this space. Note the really tight Bollinger Bands were above the 50 period. We came down and tested that level. And we see nice volume and MACD turning. So we definitely see a theme of real estate shares, IYR, and REITs in the Vanguard fund that we pointed out previously. So keep an eye on those for your trades going into the week. Now you can also look at some other names in the space, so keep those in mind as well if they have more bullish patterns. This is just for a Bollinger Band squeeze scan, looking for volatility to increase on these names. Let's do a quick scan using a SAR breakout scanner. We'll look at those real quick. just to give another group of names to look at. You can see there's a small group here. Let's change that scan and edit that for a different range of stocks. Let's see, we're at Scooter above 80, so let's change that to 50. And we have shares trading a million, or stocks trading a million shares. Let's change that to 500,000. Run the scan again. And we come up with a larger list. Let's sort that by Scooter scores. Higher the better. And we can see which names show up here as well. So you may want to pause this, go through some of these names, and check out the sectors that they're trading in, as well as how they're performing relative to the SP 500 and the NASDAQ. Okay, so that's going to do it for me. This is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com with a look at the week ahead and a watch list on April 6th, Sunday. I hope this helps.